So, hello and welcome to Shadow Spawns, the brand new campaign from the RPG Academy podcast. This is going to be a 13th Age, mostly, game. The goal is to live stream every other week on Tuesdays, barring, certain things that we can't control. And it'll be on YouTube later, and then there'll be an audio only podcast that will come out much in the future. Because right now we have two campaigns currently running on the show, and I don't want to add a third. So we're going to kind of dive into things pretty much off the bat. But before we do that, I always want to go quickly around the room and have everyone say hello, introduce yourself as your name, your social media handles if you have any, and then the name of the character you're playing. So I am Michael. I am the GM, and you can find me at the RPG Academy. Lisa, say hello to everyone.
Hello to everyone. I'm Lisa Lee, and I am at Lisa Bell on Twitter, and I am playing Daria Irthos.
Daria. Alrighty. And then to your virtual left, my virtual right, is Caleb. Caleb, say hello, everyone.
Howdy, kids out there in Radio Land. The Caleb G here playing Rio Baymont.
Rio Baymont. There may be some vampires in your future. Thank you, Fox.
Confirm or deny the intent behind my name.
Okay, for subscribing, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. If you're in chat, please go ahead and say hello as well. We're going to try to monitor chat as best we can, but I can't make any promises. All right, and then our last of our triumvirate here of players is Brad. Brad, say hello, everyone.
Hey everybody, how you doing? My name's Brad. I'm at Force and Destiny, and I am playing Saladin Saul, as he goes by, Chris Dark.
I'm sorry, one more time, what was that?
Saladin Chris Dark goes by Saul.
Gotcha. My headset cut out. I don't think it was my internet. I'm always terrified about my internet cutting out. So, all right. So we will open our story on a dark and stormy night, and it's very dark and it is very stormy. There's lightning and thunder crashing all around, and we find our three heroes on a ship. Might be too big of a word, so it's called a barge, and this is a dwarven built barge. So it's the best way to think of it is imagine it's like an overly sized barrel, and someone has just like cut a third off the top of it sideways. And so it just sort of sits in this river that you are currently going down at breakneck speed. And then someone has taken the part they cut off and sort of made that into a floor about 5 feet down. So when you're standing on the deck, the sides sort of curve up towards you, but don't obviously come all the way together. And there's basically a rudder at the back of the ship that kind of controls it. And there's actually a place beneath this floorboard that, for storage, that kind of, the hold, that's the word I'm trying to think for. Currently, it is pouring the rain, thunder and lightning crashing all over you. It is very dark. And you are flying down this river because it has been raining for several days. The river is very high, fast moving. And while this is an area known as Jedna's Folly, and there are certainly rapids and waterfalls ahead of you, because of the abundance of rain, the rapids have kind of been muted a little bit. Generally, you can avoid the waterfall areas, but right now, very dark, you're going very, very fast, and there are several barges behind you that are shooting arrows at you as we speak. So we are going to start off this game by rolling initiative.
All right.
So initiative is your D20 plus your dexterity modifier plus your level. So everybody's currently at level 1.
4. So Saul's going to kick it off with a 19.
19, excellent.
Rio's coming to bat with a 21.
Ooh.
Nice.
21 from Daria.
Ooh.
All right, who has the higher dexterity modifier?
I'm sure it's Daria. What is my dex mod? I think it's a 1. Yeah, it's a 1.
All right, so that would be Daria first, then Rio, then Saul. And then I'm just going to write bad guys for right now because you don't know who or what is behind you yet. So they will be going last. So I imagine that Daria, as a river guide, is at the tiller. But at the same time, you're going down this river so quickly at dark. Maybe Daria's at the front of the boat, like trying to like make sure you navigate properly. So where did you see Daria on the ship? Where are you?
Daria would be in the front, trying to guide and tell him which way to go, and letting someone with better strength man that tiller.
All right. So let's go ahead and roll a check for you here. So you're trying to basically get a feel for the river. It's dark. You're only getting glimpses of light when it flashes with lightning, and then you're trying to call back instructions. So who do you see on the tiller? Do you think it's Rio or Saul?
I think it would be Saul.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're trying to call back
Exactly.
over your shoulder to Saul to like turn left or right to try to avoid the worst of and navigate the river as best you can. So let's go ahead and make a skill check here. So what skill do you think would help you do this?
Me?
No, Daria.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think that would be a wisdom check.
Well, not your ability, any of your background, because I know you're like a river guide growing up, right?
Right.
So
Right.
So I imagine that would apply here, even though it's dark. You still, you're tuned with nature.
Yes.
All right. And then I think wisdom or intelligence, either one would work for the attribute.
I would say wisdom. Oh, am I lying to myself? Am I making it worse for myself? I would say wisdom, intelligence, or that. I'd be really smart about rivers. I mean, it's what I get paid to do. It's what I do every day.
Yeah.
Rain or shine. I get, Daria gets guests and loads where they need to go.
All right. So we'll go with intelligence then. So make an intelligence skill check here to see how well you are at doing this.
To be completely honest, that roll was a 2.
Okay, so that's bad. So now you're an experienced river guide. So tell me, one, why you failed, and two, what that failure caused you to say or do to make Saul's job harder, and then we'll go to him next.
I think that the storm and the size of this barrel is smaller than I'm used to, and it's not as seaworthy as I'm used to. So there'd be a lot more to contend with than just a river, than just guiding what's at the river, even in a storm. I think this whole thing is like a literal tempest in a teapot, kind of like we're going everywhere trying to keep upright as we're going down this stormy river. And I think that would give me anxiety, and the more anxiety I got about being confident of showing us where to go might affect what's happening with the backwash on the river and storm, rising tide and surging around the tiny vessel we're in.
So you're not necessarily giving him, like, you didn't say go left when you meant to say right, as much as there's just so much happening so quickly you're not able to clearly articulate what to do.
Yeah, I'm sure that if I tried to yell, starboard ho, I would get a mouthful of rainwater or waves or
So it's more like you're gargling than anything. All right. And then, so we'll jump over to Saul. So Saul, you are manning the tiller, or the rudder, I guess is what the nautical term. I'm not a boatsman. So you are at the back of this overly sized large barrel ship thing that you're on, and you can see through flashes of lightning that there's at least 2, maybe even 3 ships or barges behind you that seem to be closing closer behind. You are listening to Daria call out instructions, but let's be honest, they don't seem to be very helpful right now. So what are you doing to try to keep this boat from going under?
Oh, Saul is doing his best to, keep the ship going, more or less down the middle of the river. He may be, you said they're shooting arrows at us, so he's probably trying to do something, something crazy, a little bit like a serpentining a little bit as the boat's driving down the river, because that's a great idea in the middle of a storm.
I mean, that's how you avoid crocodiles and hippos, right? I think that's how that works.
That's right.
Science. That's science right there.
And the whole time he's doing this, he's talking and telling a story about the last time that he was on the river, and half of it's getting lost in all the wind and the rain. But he probably hasn't stopped talking for at least the last hour at this point. And so his companions are probably happy that there's a storm they can't hear.
All right, so let's have you make a skill check here to see if you're able to effectively use the rudder and navigate this river.
All right, I'm going to use my sailing skill. It's kind of fortunate. And we're going to see how we do.
All right.
That'll be a 6.
Okay, not great. But also not the worst. You could do 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 worse than that. So what do we think happened? Did the tiller maybe hit a rock, get caught in the mud? Did you lose your grip in the rain and just for a moment you actually let go of it?
Yes, absolutely. He was kind of jabbering over at Rio about something, and they may have hit something, and he wasn't wearing his gloves, and the rudder handle slapped out of his hand, and the ship jinked hard to starboard.
Gotcha. All right. So Rio, you were trying to hear what Saul is yelling to you, but it's probably difficult in the rain. You can see the ships getting closer as well between these bolts of lightning that are coming faster and faster and faster. And then the ship suddenly just sort of like jerks hard to starboard, which is what, to the right. So what are you doing at that moment, and how are you going to try to keep your footing on this slickened boat surface?
So at the moment of this small tragedy, among many other tragedies that brought us here, I am currently hanging off, not off the side of our barrel boat, but I'm kind of leaning over the side. I'm looking behind us. I'm trying to get a sense of who's back there, what they're doing. I'm trying to shout to Saul what they're doing so he can react accordingly.
Okay.
So part of this chaos is just constant communication, and none of us are listening. But when we hit this weird little jump, and I take a bit of a tumble, luckily there is a rope right there. And I have been sailing. I've been on the sea quite a few times with some of my buddies. So I've got a good instinct of self-preservation. So I grab on to a one of these ropes. I feel like there's ropes kind of going around the barrel a little bit, like
Sure.
maybe on the outside, or hanging stuff over the side.
Okay.
And so I just grab on and hold tight. My feet like kick out in the water, but I'm holding on tight.
All right. Let's go ahead and let's have a check here. I'm not going to say you're going to fall off the boat if you fail, but you might fall to the ground.
Absolutely. Well, the good thing here is that in all of my many adventures as an archivist for the Imperial Wizardry Library, I spent a hell of a lot of time on boats
Okay. Yes.
because it's just faster. So I'm used to doing this, and I feel like this might be a Dex.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a 7. We're having bad luck here, kids.
Nice grouping though. That was a 5, 6, and a 7 between everybody, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you are not going to fall over the side of the ship, but you will basically lose your footing, fall so that you're sort of like holding onto the rope so it's above you. You're laying / sitting on the ground. Now, you in particular, you have a familiar we want to introduce. What is your familiar doing? And go ahead and describe what they look like to everybody.
Oh, outstanding. So my familiar is a crossfox named Gremlin. And I feel like at the before I fell, she was probably she's pretty brave. So she was probably on the edge, looking around, trying to help me spot things, because obviously I'm an idiot and she's the one in charge.
Mm-hmm.
So as I fall, she actually grabs my sleeve in her mouth and kind of yanks a little bit, and that helps me not fall overboard and just fall in my rear.
Perfect. All right. So at this point, the bad guys are going to go, and there are going to be 3 basically arrows that have been lit on fire, flaming arrows coming at you So it does appear that either there are 3 barges or more than one arrow is coming from a single barge. It's hard to tell. There's a lot going on. It's still raining, thunder, lightning, the whole deal. So I'm going to roll basically one attack against each of you, but I'm actually going to give the arrow against against Rio a negative because you're kind of below level right now. So I'm going to roll against you first, but I'm going to give myself a -2. That's going to be a 9 versus physical defense. Your armor class. I'm pretty sure that's going to be a miss. Daria, that is a 2. And Saul, that is a 7. So all of you are missed. However, in addition to the supplies that are in the holds currently, there are some boxes and barrels and crates that are on deck with you. They are lashed together, they're tied to the ground, and they have a tarp partially covering them. One of these flaming arrows sticks right into this supply pile, and the arrow is still on fire. It's closest to Saul or to Rio. Daria's at the front of the ship, so you probably wouldn't even see this right now. But basically, there's a chance that this arrow might catch these supplies on fire. And there is a word that is at least partially illuminated by the fire on this arrow as it sticks into one of the crates. Saul, you are the first to see this. So what word do we see illuminated by this flame arrow?
Explosivo.
I love it. All right. So then we will cut back to Daria. Daria, so it doesn't seem that Saul is listening because the boat's not doing what you think it should do, but you're also not sure that you're doing a great job telling him what to do at this point. Probably an arrow whizzed by your head, so you know that there are people behind you shooting. In the distance in front of you, it looks like there might be figures sort of coming to the sides of the banks of the river. It's a pretty wide river right here, so you don't think they're going to be able to board you, but there might be additional shooting at you at this point. So what would you like to do now?
I would like to, holding as fast as I can to the front of that boat, and maybe even a mooring line or something wrapped around my hand. I'm going to shoot. I'd like to cast a spell at whichever I think is closer to me, whether I'm going to shoot it behind me or shoot it closer to whoever's coming at us, if they're closer.
I would say the people behind you are the biggest threat right now.
Then I'll shoot it behind me, above us, like this little arc over. I'd like to cast Poison Thorns.
All right. So in all my games, magic is always unique to the caster. So when you cast Poison Thorns, it will look different than if anyone else casts it. So what does it look like when you cast this spell? Both what you do, and you don't have to be super detailed, but just like, is it a wave of the hand? Is it, whatever? And then like, how does that spell manifest in the air? What does it look like to anybody in the game that would see this spell taking effect?
I don't really know what I'm doing yet. I just know that sometimes I can stop things, or if it's almost like an instinct of like, stop it, right? I just am so frustrated that you're really annoying me. So I'm just gonna shake my hands at it, get out of the rain, get this stuff off me, and it's just going to be something I'm not even aware of, and it's just a hail of like really big rose thorns.
Okay. And this is one time we can mention here as well. Again, we're playing standard 13th Age, but there are obviously some differences every time you play this game. And one of the things that's different about this version of 13th Age is that druids and druidic magic is kind of rare and relatively unknown. So even though you were playing a druid, your maybe mastery over your abilities is maybe not up to the same level of someone who's like a wizard in this world.
I hang out with wizards. I don't really know what druids are, sort of. Yeah.
All right. So is that a spell you need to roll an attack roll, or is that something I need to roll defense against?
It says.
This is Poison Thorn, right?
Any terrain. One random nearby enemy. Attack Wisdom plus level. Versus PD.
Yep. So you're attacking one of these figures on the ship. So you're going to roll D20, add your wisdom modifier plus your level, which is 1, and see if you hit their physical defense.
That was a 5. I don't think I'll hit anything.
All right. So unfortunately, no. Just the rocking of the ship it's moving fast. The ship that person is on is moving so fast that basically the spell just sort of, it arcs and then they go under it and then it kind of lands harmlessly in the river behind them. All right, so that's back to you. So I think we went out of initiative order because we were going in narrative order. So actually Rio would be next at this point. So what would you like to do, sir?
So, can I kind of trace back from the path of the flame and see who was shooting at us?
Vaguely, the ships are getting close enough that you can kind of see, dark shapes and outlines, but you can't actually see any specific, like you can't even tell if these are humans, orcs, dwarves, like it's too dark for that, but you can see these ships getting closer, these figures getting closer.
Gotcha. And is there anyone ahead of us that we're following or chasing, or we're essentially running from the folks behind us?
As far as you're aware right now, you are running from the folks behind you. I don't think Darius had a chance to communicate that there might be some other figures kind of in the front to the sides of you. So unless you look specifically for it, you would not be aware of that.
Okay. All right. So what I want to do is I want to move up to the front of the ship a little bit
Okay.
and try to give Daria some help in seeing what's going on. I know it's going to be real hard in the rain, but I want to just use some of my light magic to get some illumination out there, not at her eye level so it wouldn't glare or anything, but maybe like right under the bow of the ship, so it's almost like headlights.
Okay. All right. So what spell or ability do you have that you're using for that?
Oh, that's just my light cantrip.
Okay. So what does it look like when what do you do when this happens, and how does the spell actually manifest in the world?
So I will kind of shuffle forward a little bit, trying to keep my footing. And you said the front of the ship is kind of like a big barrel, so it's not like I can see over.
So basically it's like a barrel, and then they just sort of cut off about the third, and there would be like a something in front of it, but it's not high enough. You could look over if you needed to.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So yeah, I will kind of scoot up a little bit and honestly almost kind of absently just flick my hand over, and there's this little ball of glow that manifests right kind of beneath that rail.
All right. So as this happens, Daria, you're able to get a little bit better look at the river. It's still swollen from all the rainfall, but there are still some rocks that are causing rapids, so you're bumping along. But it will certainly make it easier for you going forward to navigate some of the worst obstacles or worst hazards that you might be facing. All right, Saul, so we're to you. So there are people behind you that are shooting. You also know that you have a fire arrow sunk into the box that says Explosio on the side. What would you like to do?
Forgot about that.
Saul sees that and he kind of mouths the words, and he almost like cartoonishly like runs forward to the arrow, kind of arms flailing, yanks it out and tosses it away.
All right, so a couple things happen here. One, you're letting go of the rudder. We'll come back to that.
Right, that'll be bad.
Two, as you reach out to grab the arrow, something unusual happens. And this is something that Saul may have experienced before to a lesser degree. But obviously this arrow is on fire. So it's not huge flame, but there's light. So as you reach for it, you have a shadow cast of your hand back out from this light. The shadow of your hand reaches out and actually grabs the arrow before your hand does. And it's almost like you're wearing a glove. So as you grab the arrow, you are protected from the fire. As you toss it overboard, the shadow basically disappears once the light is gone. Now, this is something that's happened again before, maybe not that drastically, but your shadow has been acting weird for a while. So how do you respond to seeing that happen?
his face will kind of go ashen, and drain white. Drain the color will drain out of his face, and he'll say, "Trick of the light, yeah, lightning and wind and rain. That's it. That's it." And then he'll kind of scramble back to try to get to the rudder and not get cracked in the face as it's flop as the pole's flopping around.
All right, so let's make another skill check. Another again it can be part of your sailor background to get back to the rudder without making things worse. I like that smile on your face. I'm thinking things got worse, didn't they?
Yeah, it got worse.
Okay,
It got worse. It got bad.
got bad.
I got a 5.
Okay, all right. You know what? I like the consistency though. At least we're always consistent with what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm
All
gonna
right.
demote this die.
So as the
Time for
bad
a
guys
new die.
go, they're going to change their tactics a little bit, and you hear a very large crashing thunk sound. So right as you get back to the rudder, basically they have fired like almost not quite a catapult sized, or not catapult. What's the big thing that shoots the arrows? Ballista. That's the word.
Ballista.
So it's not a ballista-sized arrow, but it's like in the middle between that and a regular arrow. Sinks into your ship. So it basically punches through, locks in. There's a very heavy rope, and they're trying to slow you down. So they're going to drop their anchors and pull back on their oars and try to, essentially, they're trying to stop you at this point. So that's all they're doing on their turn. So we'll go back to Daria. So Daria, there's a sudden, the ship slows so suddenly, you sort of lurch forward. I'm not going to have you roll if you fall out, but it's very noticeable that your speed has dropped substantially in relation to this loud cracking, thunking sound you just heard. What would you like to do?
I'm gonna turn around and see what happened to us.
So you would see the grappling hook that has like punched through the back part of the ship and is now connected. Again, I'm hoping like punches through, I guess more like that, and then is holding onto your ship that way.
Is that also gonna like swerve us?
It
Or is
could.
it just
So currently it's just causing you to slow down because basically you're now pulling twice the weight or more, and you get the feeling that they probably have like put oars in the water and are trying to back, or maybe even dropped like anchors off the side. So they're just trying to slow you down with their weight.
I also don't want that backflow to swamp us.
That could be bad.
Surge, that could be really bad. Not that needs to happen, but I would definitely want to try and, is it attached? Try to get it off. I would try to forget navigating and try to run to that grappling hook and try to remove it, cut the tie from it.
Yeah, you think the best bet would be to try to cut the rope, but again, it's a very thick rope. I'm not saying you can't do it, but either way, it's going to be hard. But in my mind, it would be harder to like dislodge the grappling hook than it would be to just sort of cut the rope that it's attached to it.
Try with my shell blade and try to whip out my shell blade and try to start.
Okay. All right.
Whatever I can do.
So yeah, so you start sawing on it. Again, I'm not going to have you roll for that. It's going to happen, but I'm going to say it takes more than one turn for you to cut through it. So right away, there's like that snappy twing sound is like the individual fibers are being cut and they're because they're so taut. But it's going to take you at least a full round to your next turn to cut all the way through. All right, so Rio, it's back to you. You just made light for Daria to see, and then she ran to the back of the boat.
We are a well-oiled team.
Machine.
Go up.
And I'll yell, arrows to the front as well, as I run back and try to.
So, question: have we been advancing the escalation die in combat?
We have not, because I feel like in this particular place, you are not gaining an advantage, so I don't think it would qualify currently.
That's what I
could be
thought.
argued against that, but I don't feel like at this moment we're actually advancing in any way.
Now, that's what I felt you were going to say, and I agree.
You
So,
mean it's not part of our cunning plan?
We'll jump it straight to 5 if you can convince me. Okay.
oh god, I'm not that
No.
good. It's been too long. All right, so I am kind of still midship. I am seeing all this happening. I'm just gonna just kind of mutter under my breath, shadows and dust. This is not how I wanted this day to go. I look back to see Daria trying to cut this rope. So basically, both of them are aft of the ship right now.
If aft means back, yes.
Yes.
Right on.
Context
So-
clues.
With this rope now kind of stuck in our ass, is the other ship closer to us, or are they still far enough away that I can't really see who's who?
So the ship that launched the grappling hook is about the same distance because they're connected to you. But the other two ships, because there were actually three of them, have caught up dramatically because they are not holding you back and they were moving at the same speed you were. So yes, so you can now get a better look still through the brief flashes of light of these two ships that are moving closer to you. It's still difficult, however, to see because it's as if, I'm not going to say for sure, but it's as if they are cloaked in shadows themselves, and it's hard to distinguish anything, any details about them. But there are multiple figures, humanoid-ish in size and shape, but not necessarily two hands, two legs. It's too hard to see that. That are coming. There's probably 3 or 4 on each that are coming closer to you, basically on either side.
Okay. So quick tactical decision here. I'm lots of foes. I don't have the firepower to engage with them right now. I'm going to try to help sever this rope so we can try to get some speed back. As the type of wizard I am, being so good with casting cantrips, I have the ability to custom make cantrip versions of any of my prepared spells.
Okay.
One of my prepared spells is Acid Arrow.
Okay.
I feel like I could use a cantrip version of that to help eat through that rope way faster than normal.
All right. I'll buy it. I'll buy what you're selling there. So is this something again you have to roll, or you cast a cantrip and you can modify it on the fly?
Exactly that one.
Okay.
So I am kind of looking around, trying to tactically figure out what's going on. I see what's happening. I look at the rope. I am just going to do a classic snap my fingers and point at the rope. And right where Daria's blade is cutting into it, it starts to sizzle. And there's this like green venom just welling up around the incision she's already made, helping her snap through that twine, those strands even faster.
Okay. So I think that makes total sense. I think with what Daria's already done and the amount of strain that's on that rope, that the moment this acid is added, it's going to have a dramatic and drastic effect, which is also going to mean that the ship will start to dart forward much quicker, not slamming you because you're both there, but kind of almost pinning you to the back for just a moment as the ship, bursts of speed forward. But you have successfully severed that rope this round rather than having to wait. All right, so back to you, Saul.
Saul sees the two ships come up to the side, and that his companions are frantically working on severing the rope. He makes the decision that he has to do something, and he lets go of the rudder, and he takes a step towards the side of the boat as his eyes begin to fill with this azure blue light, and he reaches a hand up towards the sky, and he reaches out with his hand extended and grabs a lightning strike. As it comes down and strikes into his hand, it flows through his body and flies out through two pointed fingers like this. He's going to cast lightning fork at the boat, the boat on the closest boat.
All right, let's make that happen. Well, I'll say that you're on the right side of the boat, so it's again starboard.
Oh, okay. All right. So I am going to use my Benny to re-roll because
So this is where we point out one of the things that's different about this game is we're using a Benny kind of inspiration mechanic. Every character or every player starts with 1, and there's some things they can do with this, including just getting a straight re-roll. And then you can choose whichever role you would like. There are ways to get these back, making me laugh, doing something really cool or dramatic, working in your equip, which we will get to in a moment. I think Caleb already did, but we'll circle back to that in a moment.
I'll never tell.
So go ahead, Brad, and re-roll with your token there.
Much better, much better. Okay, so that is going to be a total of a 22.
Yes, that is much better. So
Yeah, it beats the one that I rolled. So it's going to be against their physical defense, and because this was I made a natural even attack roll, I get to chain my attack against another target.
okay.
So I'm gonna chain it against one of the shadows.
Okay, so anything on that boat has a less of a physical defense than 22, so you're going to hit anything on there. So how many targets? Because there's like 3 or 4. How many of those can you target?
Right. So initially it's one target, and then I chained it to hit a second one, and so I'll make another attack roll against them.
Gotcha.
So I have to make that other attack roll.
Okay,
That will be an 11, so that'll probably
that's
not be good
unfortunately going
enough.
to miss.
Okay, so I did hit one.
Yeah, so you hit one square, and there's a bit of almost like an arcing electricity to another, but it just washes over them and doesn't actually affect them. But the first one takes the full brunt. And for a moment, you can see very clearly that this creature is not, in fact, not bathed in shadow. It is, in fact, bathed in shadow. I said that really weirdly. But yes, this is a creature made out of shadow, or at least has shadow covering it, like a physical manifestation of shadow.
That will be 13 points of. I'm sorry, that's not correct. That will be 15 points of lightning damage.
All right.
It's the energy. It's the energy phase. He says, they're shadows. To just kind of like they're shadows. And they do take half damage on a miss.
Okay.
So
The other one's okay. So the first one's going to take the full brunt of it. Just hits them square in what appears to be like a chest area. And again, with your sight, you can see that the shadow. So these creatures aren't living shadow; they are concealed within shadow. So there was a physical being inside the shadow that you hit. The shadow sort of escaped away from it, and you hit that one. It just goes flying off the side of the ship and falls into the water. And then the shadow that was on it seems to just dissipate, or it fades into the dark and you can't actually see what happens to it. The one beside it would take some damage. So it's almost like a ultimate power sort of situation. But it doesn't seem to actually take them off completely. Okay.
Rio shouts, I told you, plant and twist with your hips. That's where the power comes from.
Magic comes from the hips. All right. So you continue
it's all in the hips.
to barrel, pardon my pun, down this river at breakneck speed. And it seems like you're starting to make distance again. So the boat that Saul just attacked seems to have slowed a little bit from its attack. The ship behind you that was trying to hold you down with their weight, they were trying to slow themselves down. So once you broke free, it's going to take them a little while to recover. So you made a lot of distance on them. The ship to the other side, port, is sort of closing in, or it's closer than the other two, but you're still starting to make ground on it. But there's a loud thudding sound from the front of the ship as you've hit something in the river. It doesn't slow you down, so it wasn't like a wall or a huge rock, but it's a very loud thumping sound. But that thumping sound doesn't really sort of stop, as it just sort of continues around the side of the ship. And it takes you a moment to realize that there is something that has hit the ship and is now climbing up the side. So there's a moment in a perfectly dramatic lightning strike that perfectly illuminates for all aboard as this creature lunges to the side, lands on the deck, and it is a necro-enhanced shadow werewolf. And there's a sound as it howls into the night. Its cybernetic, steampunky parts whirling and bobbing and twisting and clacking as the living shadows that gives it life rise in and out. But that's where we're going to stop this scene. And we're going to rewind a little bit because we got to figure out how the hell we got there.
Saul's gonna say, "I don't. That's not a hippo, Daria."
This is not in my guidebook.
I almost snorted water out my nose. It was very close. Sorry. Oh, alrighty.
Too bad.
Yeah. So we were going to cut an indeterminate amount of time in the past. It is it's definitely some time in the past. It could be days, could be weeks, could be months. We don't know yet, and honestly, I don't know yet either. But we are around an area in the 13th Age book called the Fangs, which is a series of rivers that flow into I think it's called the Midland Sea. And there has been an archaeological discovery made, an ancient city from ages past, so long ago that this is just truly like a archaeological dig site. And it's an entire city that has basically sunk into this area, has been covered up, and it is being excavated very, very slowly. And each of you, for your own reasons, has come to this place. We're going to start with Saul. So Saul, you are sitting at an outside table of a makeshift tavern that has popped up here to serve travelers, but mostly the workers that are working here. And the name of this tavern is on this card, if I can find it. All right, it's called the Lost Ingots, but everyone just calls it GOTS for short. So what are you doing at this moment? You're sitting at a table, could be by yourself, could be with someone else, taking a drink, eating, whatever. What do we see, Saul, as the camera sort of focuses on you? And go ahead and describe what you look like as well to the audience.
Sure. So Saul,
Which is currently two people, by the way, and I'm pretty sure that's Foxblade and me. But if there's anybody else, say hello.
So Saul is he's an elf that's approaching, maybe his middle years. He has above average height, with dark hair that's beginning to just show that, the first signs of getting a gray tint to it. He is tall and lanky. He's dressed in kind of these robes of black and white, or black, white, and gold, and they're well worn. They're not ratty per se, but they're getting there. And currently he's sitting there. He has this very large bowl of noodles that he's got from ingots, and he's just happily going to town with a big smile on his face and enjoying his bowl of noodles.
All right. So after a few moments, the proprietor, a gnome named Taylock, will come back out, offer you additional food and drink, start a short conversation with you, and ask you once again, so you've been here pretty much all day. Have you remembered yet why you came?
No, but I imagine with another bowl of noodles, I'll be that much closer. I'm sorry, I have money.
So Taylock will happily take your coin, and not with like a mean, but sort of almost a wry grin. Will turn and shake their head as they walk away, and they'll go to get you another bowl of noodles. And this is something that's happened to Saul, unfortunately. Often you have some memory issues. Sometimes you forget things that you've known for a long time, and sometimes you forget things that are short term. So you cannot actually remember why you came here today.
No, but he has the distinct feeling that it was important, and he's learned through his long life that important things will often reveal themselves. So he is watching, and morally, he's watching his noodles than he is the other things.
Oh, all right. So
he has a soft spot
for noodles.
Yes, it's not supposed. It's everything that goes with the noodles. It's the vegetables, the
ritual.
Yes, exactly.
Excellent. So the whole streaming thing, I'm still figuring out. I wasn't seeing anything in chat, and then I jumped over to the actual chat window, and then a whole bunch of stuff showed up. So there were a couple people that were chatting, though it looks like it was mostly us. But if someone did and I missed it, my apologies. I think I have it up now, so if anything new pops in, it should. I should see it on there. I should see it on my screen. But if you are watching, if you haven't yet said hello, please do. We'd love to know that you're out there and that you're watching. And if you have any suggestions, throw them out there. Can't guarantee that I'll use them, but I might certainly later. And if they're funny or make things worse, they're more likely to be used. So, Saul, as you're sitting there, trying to remember what it is you're supposed to do, you notice someone walking towards you that you do actually recognize, but you haven't seen them for quite a while. And Lisa, what does Daria look like? You have walked into this town. We'll get to why in a moment, but you just happen to notice Saul sitting by himself outside this tavern, and you're going to make your way over. So what do you look like for the audience and for Saul?
Daria is a half elf. She's a little taller and more muscled than, a little more athletic than most elves, than most half elves. She's a little tanner. She's got long layered kind of like fiery auburn autumnal colored hair, and she's got a heart-shaped face and leaf green eyes and kind of almond-shaped eyes and big lashes and like pale green eyes and those dark lashes. And she's wearing fine hunting leathers that are kind of well worn in because she is a river guide. So she has that outdoor wear to everything that she's wearing. Nothing looks like it's indoor clothing. They're greens and soft blues. They're embossed with forest pines and moon cycles and but picked out in between the leathers, you can see she's got a partlet on, a chemise dashed with indigo embroideries and silk ties. She's got weapons on her belt. She's got braids in her hair. Her hair's kind of half up, half down. There's like tokens, elven tokens kind of braided into her hair and beads in parts of them. And she's got a black pouch with moons and stars on it.
Okay. So, Saul, you recognize Daria walking towards you. What would you do? What would you say?
He's just he puts an arm up and waves and motions you over.
That looks fantastic. I have to have one of those. No.
There's a dog barking for the noodles nearby.
Kind of like shoos it away.
What are we? Do you know what we're doing here?
Yeah. No. I'm enjoying noodles.
Okay, good. Noodles first.
Noodles first. Noodles are the most important thing. So how are you? It's been a while. I don't remember exactly how long, but
yeah. But you look well.
Oh, thank you.
Have you been here long?
I got here this morning. Yeah. How about you?
Me as well. Last night, really. It was a lovely moon, and it was nice to see the dig at night. First thing. It was kind of magical. Kind of loved it. But it's bustling today. It was so quiet last night.
When you say the word dig, he gets those like incredibly large eyes, and then you can almost see the light bulb going off on his head. We're here for the dig.
Yes.
So go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
So there you got it. You got it. There. Cheers.
Thank you so much.
So about that time, a female tiefling approaches from outside the tavern. This is one thing I should mention about 13th Age. The way I do tieflings, they're not a true race. They're just something that happens. So a tiefling can be born from any parentage. It's just every now and then there's a tiefling comes out. This particular tiefling presents as female, has a reddish purplish tinge to their coloration, but is dressed more like you would think of like an archaeologist. It's like the the pit helmet, the puffy like khaki pants, high boots, loose work shirt. And she'll come up to both of you and say, "Oh, excellent, you're both here and together. This is very fortuitous. My name is Narvson, and I will take you to Jiraiya. Please, if you're ready, let's go."
Yes. Hi. Thank you. And he will down the rest of his bowl. And then kind of look over to Lisa. Do you want to take yours to go?
Mine to go. I'll just yes, and I'll motion to whoever is there to get mine
To
to go.
Daria, not Lisa.
And put it in my pouch and say thank you, Narson. Say it again. Who are we meeting? I'm sorry, I just.
It's a Jiraiya.
Yeah.
Of course. I'm so sorry. Forgive me.
Yeah,
for not
he's
taking-
been expecting you for some time. I just assumed there were some delays and we've been having problems with some of our shipments arriving. So I'm thinking the roads are just worn or maybe troubles along the way. But it's here and there. Please just follow me. And so Narvson will turn and basically lead you in. So it's almost, think of it like an Old West sort of town. It's just sort of popped up on the edges of this dig site because the dig site has become exhaustive and large, and like lots of people have been coming in and hired to help the excavation. So there's a lot of people here. A lot of those people, they're going to need supplies. They're going to need
So
food
a
and
boom
drink.
town.
I'm sorry.
Like a boom town.
Yes, very much like a boomtown, but it's still very
Okay.
early in the stages as well. So like Ingots is like the first tavern, but probably won't be the last. It's the most well established. But everything is, roughshod, and boards are like leaned together more than nailed in times. There's lots of tents more than structures, but it's certainly bustling. So Narvson will lead you. It's probably like a 20-minute walk to get into the dig site itself. And there is a sort of a campsite. There's a semicircle of these white tents, A-frame tents. There's one larger one more in the center. Its flaps are open. And there is who you can only assume is Jiraiya. And this is a dwarven male and is absolutely dressed like you would think an archaeologist in 13th Age would be dressed. The first thing that you do notice, however, is that Jiraiya is missing his arm from just past the elbow down. But rather than it being completely absent, there is a force limb that's there, but it's not a hand. It appears to end in some sort of tool, like a 3-pronged clamp. And in that clamp is a notebook that Jiraiya is feverishly scribbling notes in. And as Narvson brings you right up to the edge of the tent, she'll even a couple times, but Jiraiya's just into that notebook, and like maybe 2 full, silent, awkward minutes pass before Jiraiya gets to a point where they'll like tap the pen, and then like, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize you were there. And then looks over at Narvson and almost gives like a look like, why didn't you tell me people were here? And of course, Narvson will just roll her eyes because she tried multiple times. But Jiraiya seems to be, a jovial sort and is happy that you're there. Isn't like stern or just forgetful. And will start to like flip back through the notebook for a couple moments and then sort of lose track of time again. And then eventually we'll come back around and say, "Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. Thank you again for coming." And you are, and we'll look at Saul.
I'm Saul Christark.
Oh, Saul, it's very nice to meet you. And he'll actually reach out with his left hand to do a handshake if you are.
Oh, yeah. He will oblige and return the shake.
All right. And then
with
we'll
his
turn and look
left
at
hand.
you. And I'm sorry, you are?
Daria. Erthos, Daria.
Daria. Oh, yes. I knew you were both coming. I'm so sorry. There's just it's so exciting. So why are you here?
For the dig.
You called us over? A pleasure to meet you.
Oh, yes.
In person?
Absolutely pleasure. I'm so glad you're here. So I'm sorry. You said you were here for the dig.
Right. We're here for the dig. Yeah. We're here to help.
We're here to help.
help.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Because we
It-
need
Oh,
help. We actually there's a lot of help that we need. Is there anything specifically that you would be good at that we could get you to help with?
uh, uh, look at Saul, and Saul looks at me, and we look at each other like I'm a river guide, so I'm a bit literally out of my depth, I think.
I know magic. He has
Huh.
erased his eyebrow.
So
That helped a lot.
Jariah will look to Narvson, then we'll look to his notebooks, then we'll look back up to Narvson. And then Narvson will step in. Actually, we do have that missing explorer. What was his name? Rio? He was supposed to be back a couple days ago, and no one has seen him. Maybe these two could go look for him. We have an idea where he went. That might be helpful. And Joyce like, yes, of course. Thank you. I'm so glad you came because of exactly what we need. So we have an archivist here, and as we have found some buildings that are intact, and he will go into like a 5-minute side tangent on how some of these buildings are so well preserved. It is amazing that they are just as if the building themselves somehow sank into the ground and are still fully formed. And so like once you get into the buildings, you can navigate them as if they were actual above ground. They're just underground. So of course, it's dark and it's dank. And then just like 5 solid minutes of this before he comes back, goes, oh yes, sorry, Rio. Yes. So Rio, found one of these buildings and wanted to do some exploring on his own before we started the excavation because he thought there might be something. You know what? I'll let him tell it. Here, Narvson, if you would direct them to where he was at, and just assuming he's alive, just bring him back alive. If he's dead, bring him back too, but he's probably easier to carry that way. But if he walks, if he's alive, that would be helpful. And then he will just, again, kind of get off on a tangent about like the nature of ambulatory. It's kind of odd, but Narvson will just sort of like pull you to the side. And the last thing you will notice is that somehow Jariah has now got a different notebook and is now scribbling notes in that. You don't know where the other notebook came from, but it's just scribbling notes in there furiously as Narvson will pull you out of the tent. So yes, so thank you very much. We do appreciate you both coming. We're still in sort of a working out mode. We're still getting, people into positions. It's all very much up in the air, but we do have an archivist that has gone missing. His name's Rio Baymont. And if you could go look for him, it would be helpful for us. Unfortunately, there have been multiple people that have gone missing that have not been found at all. But this guy seems to know what he's doing. We expect that he might have just ran into some troubles. She'll give you basically directions. It's like maybe a 30-minute walk in. There are flags and strings that laid out into different quadrants and can get you close enough that you'll be able to probably find where he went. Any questions you have for yourself, each other, for me as the DM or as a character before we get to that part?
Jariah, sir, if we do find him or anyone else that's missing in there, any way to get any word back to you?
Well, I mean, you would just come back with him.
Okay. Good to know. So does Rio owe you any money?
No?
I was just going to ask if we knew someone named Rio.
Yeah, both of you know Rio. You know a person named Rio Baymont. You have met them in the past.
Yes.
Yeah, it's that same Rio. You know what? He may owe us money. He probably owes us noodles.
Without a doubt.
Yep.
And
Let's go find him.